Friends of the British Council. Everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy here at the Fantasy Sports Studio 34 Network here on West 35th Street. And we've got some big guests today. NOLA Nate, Nate Osborne of the New Orleans, Louisiana Gold, the new MLR Major League franchise, and Mr. Steve Lewis, the Elite Sevens coach, the Champagne Socialist, the man that knows a lot about rugby here in New York. Anyway, Nate, I got to get into your bio real rapid fire because you know we got a little bit of time here in this Fancy Pants studio. But you grew up in Australia, played rugby from the age of 5. You moved to the USA in 2006 to play for the Denver Barbarians. You moved to Minneapolis in 2017 because you're insane. Started playing with the Metropolis RFC. Started coaching their D3 team, and you won the national championship that year.
That's right. Yep, first year. We won the national championship in D3.
And were you still putting on the cleats at that point?
I was, actually, yeah.
So player-coach?
Yeah, so player-coach, yeah. So I spent the first couple of years as a player-coach and then moved into just coaching.
And you're a funny talker, so you could kick the ball, and right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, because I've seen you instructing Eagles on how to kick, so let's hope that you can kick. Right? So, all right.
I can, yeah.
All right,
Not as good as AJ McGinty, but I can kick.
Or Chris O'Brien.
Obi's better than me too. He's a great kicking coach, Obi.
I got you in, Obi.
Great man, great kicking coach. Yeah, great kicking coach, great man.
All right, great kicking coach, great man, Chris O'Brien. You took over as the head coach in 2012. Spring, you guys went into a bunch of the finals. You became Team USA's attack and backs coach in 2014 and stayed on throughout the Rugby World Cup in 2015 where we met. And you are now the head coach of the MLR franchise, the NOLA Gold. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Spot on, mate.
All right, good. And Nate, this is our first attempt at our new segment, Getting to Know the MLR. And you are our first contestant.
Nice.
You are the NOLA Gold, the New Orleans, Louisiana Rugby Pro team entered in the MLR, Major League Rugby. Is this not true?
This is true. Yeah, it's exciting. It's probably the highlight of that whole thing is I loved working with the Eagles. I loved Metropolis, but to be a professional head coach at a new franchise in a new league is really exciting for me. So I'm excited about that.
And Steve Lewis, you could talk to that a little bit. He was with the Pro Rugby setup. And he's got an affiliation with Minnesota. You guys have these common affiliations. His ex-wife is from Minnesota.
Ex-wife is the important distinction there. But, yeah, Nate, congrats. You were 3 minutes from perfection this year, right? Just got to that last game, and you were going to be unbeaten with Metropolis. Is that right?
Yeah. So, they had a good season. Rob Holder actually took over doing a lot of the coaching during the fall since I had the NOLA stuff, but same group of young guys that they got here that are just playing really good rugby, and 3 minutes away from 14-0, so they had a great season.
Beautiful. All right, so Nate, first question for you. The MLR is looming. Professional rugby in the United States. The second setup, as per our aforementioned Pro Rugby with Steve Lewis and Mr. Doug Schoninger. Are you guys waiting for the looming boom of Doug Schoninger, or are you just going about business anyway?
We're just going about business anyway, mate. We've pretty much secured our whole squad, and everyone knows what we're doing. We start training January 3rd down in New Orleans, and we have our preseason and our games all already set up. So we're just going about it like we're a new thing, and we're not really looking over our shoulder at anybody else. We're just doing what's best for us and trying to move forward.
Steve, what advice can you pass along to your friend here of a long time, your shared Denver and Minnesota affiliations? What do you pass along with the knowledge and the wisdom that you've gained in the first initial pro setup here in the United States?
No, I think the main thing is to enjoy it. As you said, the opportunity to be a professional coach, particularly in the United States, hasn't really happened. This is the second iteration. There's many things about it that are more solid and will help you. I think some of the other teams, some of the other people involved are terrific. I think you're going to have a great time, and I just wish you all the best. I know quite a few of the players going down to you. You got some good boys there, so enjoy it.
Yeah, Nate, you've got a fellow South African in Gary Gold as the head coach. You guys have a relationship?
I don't personally. I know Davey Williams, who was doing the defence for this last November tour, might have had a chance to chat to him and stuff like that. But I haven't heard anything about him or know anything really about him. But other than like his resume, which kind of speaks for itself, he seems like a great coach and a great guy to take the Eagles forward. So yeah, that's all I really know about him.
So you want to make some predictions on your MLR team? You're going to win the whole thing? Are you ready to do that right now? I know that you still don't even have a full squad on paper, but you're going to win the whole thing, aren't you?
100%. Yep. I feel very good about the squad we put together.
A little locker room fodder for the other squads, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, bring it on, mate.
So bringing up Denver again, what do you think the difference between these squads and like a Denver Stampede or an Ohio Aviators is?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, Glendale go into this season with a big advantage because the core of that team has been together for some time, both with the Stampede and then both with Glendale and the Denver Barbarians. So they are probably in pole position in terms of cohesion. Houston have made some big signings and they've got a lot of players on board, so they look to be in good shape too. Plus, they've started a really extensive preseason about 2 weeks ago, and they're going pretty much all the way through. I think it'll be interesting for teams like Nate, for New Orleans, and also San Diego, who are really, in essence, creating new teams. I think that's a specific challenge you guys are going to have in comparison with, say, Glendale or Houston. So, again, all the best with that.
All right, so, guys, we're getting the word in the earphones. We got to take a quick break, but don't go away. We'll be right back with Mr. Nate Osborne and Mr. Steve Lewis right after this.
All right, everybody, how's it going? We sip. We peel. We slide? Nah, like this. We sip. We peel. We win.
I think I'm getting this. Grab a large or extra large freshly ground, freshly brewed hot coffee for your chance to win great prizes like free coffee for a year. Get your celebration ready. Dunkin' Donuts. This is coffee. This is winning.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
Hey everybody, Matt McCarthy back here at the Studio 34 Fantasy Sports Network on West 35th Street in Manhattan for Rugby Wrap-Up, and I have my esteemed guest still with me, Mr. Nate Osborne. He, the head coach of the NOLA Gold, the New Orleans, Louisiana Gold, I believe that acronym is, of the MLR, Major League Rugby, and Mr. Steve Lewis, the Elite Sevens coach and just all-round champagne socialist when it comes to rugby and all things political. I wanted to segue into, Steve's got the Scottish ball in front of him, Nate, and I just wanted to ask Steve, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask him, what was the more egregious affront on our rugby sensibilities? Was it Japan tying France on their home pitch and getting booed off the field? Was it the kerfuffle, the prop kerfuffle at the end of the Wales-Georgia game? Or was it Kieran Read slapping the ball and Scotland's hopes out of their hands from his fanny on the turf?
So you're going to let Nate slide on 53-24. We'll get to that later.
Well, I got a question for him about that.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest, in my opinion, was Kieran Read. I mean, here's the game. There's a friend of mine, Stuart Murray, University of Delaware coach, calls it situational cynicism, and there's no team better than the All Blacks at situational cynicism. They got 2 yellows. Kieran Read should have had a yellow. The winger could have had a yellow. They're terrific at it. They get away with it, so all credit to them. But to my mind, I didn't see the Gatland thing. France have got their own issues, but to me it was Kieran Read as the dolt of the day.
Nate, Michael Cheika.
Yeah.
You a fan?
Yeah, I do. I like Michael Cheika. I think he brings a lot of passion to the team. He's made, I think, those guys believe what and Wallaby and play for Australia again, and the passion that takes. And they just have their ups and downs. It's the same as the Super Rugby. You can't ever put your finger on when they're going to be good and when they're going to be bad. And I mean, they go from beating the All Blacks to losing by a lot to Scotland. And I mean, Scotland's a good team. They they mix it up with the All Blacks as well. But there's no reason that in international rugby at tier 1 level like that you should concede 50 points.
What does head coach Nate Osborne do differently in that game that from Michael Cheika?
I think defense, mate. Like, you can't leak 50 points in any game, whether it's D3 or whether it's high school or whether it's international. Then your defensive structures, there's something going on with your one-on-one defense and your defense. So I think a lot of it comes to that is if you're scoring 24 points, then you shouldn't be leaking 50. Yeah. So I think that they need to be more defensive-minded. As
your fellow Aussie Phil Bailey would say, they're not covered in spiders, mate. You got to tackle them. Right. Bales should do the job. Bales will do a great job with those guys. He's very, very good at his defensive work. All right. So enough about torturing Steve about Scotland. Let's talk about let's keep it in the international vein. USA. The Eagles had a pretty solid match. You know, everybody's saying, "Oh, you lost to Georgia." Georgia's a strong side. They have an unbelievable pack. They, lost to Wales when they should have. They were robbed by Wales. And did Warren Gatlin cheat? By not telling the truth about injuries to his props, maybe. But anyway, that was a pretty good squad. And but for an AJ McGinty misconversion, they win that match in Georgia. What do you think about the current makeup of Team USA right now?
Mate, I think they're doing great. I think in any country, no matter where you go, to play someone there, it's always a tough ask. And to go to a hostile environment like Georgia and come away with that closer game, and one that I think they would have left there thinking that they definitely should have won.
Oh yeah.
And it's not all it's not all pinned on AJ's missed kick. I think there was a lot of mistakes in that game when Georgia was down to 13 men and they conceded the try. A lot of things like that. I think they just went away from their structures a little bit. They got excited that they had 2 men over, and if they had just stuck to the game plan, I think they would have won that one. But like I said, anywhere you go in those countries is really hard to get a win. So I think they should hang their heads high on that tour, coming together late, new coaching stuff, all that stuff. Then I think there's a lot of stuff that they can build going to the ARC and then into the June test next year.
Oh, you're spoken like a true head coach of a professional organization. Well done, Fred. Steve Lewis, with the success of these Tier 2 nations, you see Japan draw France in France. You see Georgia put up such a good fight against Wales. You saw Ireland and Fiji in a tight bout. And now USA and Georgia in this match. Is it time for the Six Nations to expand and include some of these teams, because it will help these teams, specifically a team like Samoa, make some money, and maybe in Super Rugby, instead of these 2 November international tests, why not expand the Rugby Championship or the Six Nations to include Tier 2 teams? Steve Lewis.
Well, Six Nations is a private, for-profit entity that is not separate from World Rugby. Okay, so they're a club, so they do what they want to do. They're not required. It's not a World Rugby competition, so they can do what they want to do.
But it is sanctioned, and they do have players released.
Absolutely, but World Rugby cannot tell them to take another team on. It's entirely up to them.
Well, they could by saying, "We'll take your sanction away."
That would be ridiculous. That'd be ridiculous. So I'm not defending it. I'm just saying the reality is this is not something you can talk about it, but it's not going to happen. You would have to make a commercial argument. You would have to say, right, Georgia's filling a stadium, or potentially Russia, or potentially Germany, or future markets. And to my mind, something like a second tier Six Nations might work. But you're not going to be able to dictate to them and say, Georgia's in, Italy's out. It's not going to happen.
All right. Nate, something that's going to impact you perhaps, not as directly, but now that you're with the MLR setup. Steve, the Congress. Give me an update on USA Congress since the last time you and Michael Crafton sat in here and said, hey, let's give them some time. You didn't want to give anybody any time. Michael Crafton did. What's gone on? Progress?
Better ask Mike. We're 3 months down the road. Nothing else has happened. Next Congress meeting is February 10 in Dallas. The same topics will rear their ugly head. You have a direct line, I think, to the Führer's bunker with Mr. Schoninger. So Pro Rugby's one, RIM's another. Where are the sponsors? What's the successful events? Rugby Channel, prices up, subscribers down, quality as poor as ever. The issues remain the same. I think who knows? I'm sick and tired talking to them blue in the face. But I would like to think more Congress members will be more exhaustive in the research and perhaps holding people to account.
All right. So
one important thing while we're here, got to squeeze it in. The most important news in American rugby in the last 48 hours is Perry Baker being named the World Sevens Player of the Year. It's a fantastic honor for anyone, for him in particular, teammates, coaches, but to have him as World Sevens Player of the Year, fast behind Phaedra getting in the Hall of Fame. Those are two terrific personal achievements for American rugby players and should be recognized.
Absolutely. Well done. Nate, final question for you. Is the MLR professional rugby? Would you be well served in saying this is semi-pro out of the gate because you guys are practicing or training before the guys go to day jobs and then come back? And the other side of that, if you're calling it semi-pro, then you have less of a battle with Doug Schoninger potentially on your hands.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I don't get into the whole nitpicking and all the things that is going on with Doug and MLR, but I personally think that it is a professional league. I think anytime you get paid money to do something and you get to train full time, and I mean, some of these guys will be going off to jobs, unlike guys that are playing in Europe and Super Rugby where they get to go home. But they're still getting a wage and they're still training just as much full time, and all their travel expenses are paid for. So they're not paying anything out of their pocket to do this like you are at club level. So I definitely do think that it's a professional thing, and I think that the boys should be proud to be like they were in the first year with Steve and Pro Rugby to call themselves professional athletes and professional rugby players.
Oh, you're good. A deftly handled lobby from Mr. Nate Osborne. Well done. And on that note, I'm going to have to say, guys, as usual, we could talk forever, but we're getting yelled at by Greg Sussman and Frank Stample downstairs in the headset. So we're going to end the show right now at the Fantasy Sports Network. But I want to thank Mr. Nate Osborne and Mr. Steve Lewis. And on behalf of both of them, Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 here on West 35th Street in New York City for Rugby Wrap-Up, signing off.